He said, love the Lord with what? So what I'm thinking is, if you follow him and you call him Lord, then you are called to love God with all your heart, all your mind, all your money, all. And my prayer is that you leave here giving God a little bit more of your heart. Then it's successful. Giving him all, that's going to be a tough one for some of you. It's going to be a tough one because there's things you just love. You just love. God broke everything down. Everything I loved, I lost. Or almost lost, even my son. Until I want all, he said. And he took every idol. And so when you come to the Lord and you really want to get close to him, it's not going to be pretty. Okay? The Lion of Judah is going to come up on you and rip you to pieces. And then he's going to put you in his arms and put you back together better than you could have ever dreamed of or imagined. And that's the walk with Yeshua. That's the truth. Now, I'm going to talk to you today. We're not going to get it done because it's a vast subject and it's going to take a few weeks, actually. So it will be somewhat of a continuation. There's no way we could do it even if we had a lot of time. But I want to talk to you about spiritual warfare. Because I think some people know very little about it. Some people know some things about it that they've read in a book that you can't back it up with this book. And I think there's a lot of confusion in the camp. Some people don't even think about it. And that's really messed up. But in order to talk to you about spiritual warfare, we have to mention the three main characters in the spiritual warfare. And the first main character is God. And you have to know him and know about him and what makes him tick. The other main character is, of course, Satan. You have to know him and what he's capable of doing and how he can get entryway into your soul. And the third character is us. So we're going to talk about the lover of your soul. We're going to talk about the enemy of your soul. And we're going to talk about your soul. Okay? So maybe we'll get a little bit today done about God. Okay? And I hope you don't mind, but that's a subject I like talking about. I do it on a regular basis. I'm not trying to put a feather in my cap, but I talk to everybody about the Lord. Anybody who will be willing to listen. That's the only subject matter I know a little bit about. I can't offer you knowledge about sports or much of anything else. The first thing I want to say is that God is omniscient. So let's put that slide up. Now, that's a very fancy word, and you won't see that word in the Bible per se, not the exact word, but of course you've heard this word, right? And maybe you've even used this word. I don't know. Scholars love to use this word because it makes them sound scholarly. Okay? Let me break this down for you. The origin of omniscient, could we get to that next one? The origin of omniscient is omni, which means all, and scient, which means knowing. It's from the Latin. And the origin goes back to about 1595, give or take a year, so from the 16th century. And basically what it is, it's the state of having total knowledge, or the quality of knowing everything. So nobody likes a know-it-all, but God is a know-it-all. Okay? Do you meet people? I meet people who I hear them talk, and it hurts my heart. Because they think they know so much more than they know. I mean, you went on Wikipedia for 5 minutes and you're an expert in the subject? Scary stuff. Scary stuff. Don't overestimate your own intelligence. For God to be truly sovereign, which means all authority, many places in the Bible he talks about his sovereignty. What he says many times is, I answer to no one. Okay, he's declaring his sovereignty. And Yeshua said at the end of the Gospel of Matthew, all authority has been given to me. Okay, so make no mistake, in order to be sovereign, to be truly sovereign over his creation, he has to be all-knowing. Otherwise, he can't be sovereign. Okay, let's look at a scripture, 1 John 3:20. It says, if our hearts know something against us, God is greater than our hearts, and he knows everything. In other words, he knows the minutest detail of our lives and everyone around us. Matthew 10:29-30, it says, aren't sparrows sold for next to nothing? 2 for an Assyrian, that's a unit of money back in the first century. Very, 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 very small, wouldn't even be a half a penny today. Yet not one of them will fall to the ground without your Father's consent. So he's saying that God attends the funeral of every sparrow. And then, of course, as for you, he says, not the sparrow, but as for you, every hair on your head has been counted. Now, for some of us, that doesn't take much. But the point is, he's intimately involved with you, and he knows everything about you. Everything. Everything. Things that you don't even know about yourself. Some things that you won't even admit to about yourself. He knows. Isaiah 46:9-10, it says, remember things that happened at the beginning long ago, that I am God and there is no other. I am God and there is none like me. By the way, we were here last night till about 7:30 doing the graphics. I hope you appreciate what Roxanne and Denise does for you. While you're home on your second glass of wine, they're still working. And they do that for God first, and they do that for you second. And Yeshua said, love God more than yourself, love people as yourself. So they do it for you, and I don't want you to take it for granted. We were really busy this week, and I didn't get to the scriptures till about Thursday afternoon, so they had to be here till 7:30. And they're wonderful to work with. I can boss them around. I can tell them anything, and they absolutely do it. They love me, and I love them, and we both love the Lord, and that's why we do it. I am God, and there is none like me. Incomparable. At the beginning, I announced the end, meaning I've set everything into history. I know everything that's going to happen because I've dictated it. I hear people running around all the time, I have free will. Really? You think so, huh? No, God permits you to have free will, and he can take it away anytime he wants. Just ask Jonah. How is his free will working for him? Come on, guys, you've made God way too small. You've let the world infiltrate the church. The church is in the world as it should be, but the world is in the church as it shouldn't. And some of these fiery preachers, they get softer and softer as years go on. You know why? Because they want more chairs filled and more money in the till. They used to tell it like it was, and they didn't fill seats up. Now they tell what people want to hear. They're stars. They're rock stars. False preachers, false teachers. I announce the end, proclaim in advance things not yet done. I dictate, and I say that my plan will hold. I'll do everything as I please to do. God knows everything that will occur until the end of history, but he also knows our thoughts before we speak them. Psalm 139:4. That before I speak even a word, I don't know, you know about it already. So you go, I'll pick the red one. I know. Okay, no, I'll pick the blue one. I knew you were going to say that. Okay, forget it, I'll pick none. I knew you were going to say that. The creator and sustainer of the universe, really? And you're limiting him? King Solomon expressed it all too well in 1 Kings 8:39. Here in heaven where you live, this is when he dedicated the temple, and forgive and act. And since you know what is in each one's heart, give each person what his conduct deserves, because you and only you know all human hearts. Ooh. Now, this isn't to get a non-believer to believe this. If you're a believer, you've been revealed. You've received the revelation. You could discern spiritual things because you're connected spiritually. You understand? These are spiritual things I'm talking. This is not a salvation station. This is not a seeker-friendly. This is not a place just to make you feel good. This is a discipling house. This is a place to get you ready for the bridegroom's coming. It's to get you without spot and blemish and wrinkle, to prepare you for the wedding supper of the Lamb. Do you understand? So you should say with me that God is omniscient. He knows everything. Okay. God is also omnipresent. Okay? Another wonderful word. Shay, would you do me a favor? Could you clip this, sweetie? He's also another wonderful word you've heard, right? You've heard this, right? If you've gone to a seminary, if you've taken any official church courses, you've heard this word, maybe some of you have used it. There's no problem with using it, but just understand a 5-year-old can't understand it. And Yeshua spoke no more than 3 syllables. So there's a lot of guys in the pulpit that if they weren't in the pulpit, they'd be a CFO at a company. Sadly enough, they run their church like a company. Am I stepping on toes? I'm sorry. No, I'm not. God is omnipresent. Look at the word from 1600, the Latin. Omni, all-present being. He's all being. He's pre-existent. God is present everywhere. Although God is immersed in the fabric of creation, he is beyond time and space. He is transcendent. The Bible reveals God to be both present to a person in a manifest manner. Look at 46:1 of the Psalms. God is our refuge and strength and ever present right now, at the moment. You don't have to call on him. Right now, if you're close to him, he's close to you. Right now. An ever-present help in trouble. He's right there, okay? And present in every situation in all of creation at any given time. Look at Psalm 33:13-14. Adonai looks out from heaven, so he's in the fabric of his creation, but he's beyond his creation. He sees every human being from the place where he lives. He watches everyone living on earth. Nothing escapes him. Nothing. God is present in all time and space. God is everywhere and every now. No molecule, no atomic particle is so small that God is not fully present to it. And no galaxy so fast that God does not circumscribe it. He's there, here, and everywhere. Psalm 139:7-10. Where can I go to escape your spirit? Where can I flee from your presence? If I climb up to heaven, you're there. If I go down to Sheol, you're there. If I fly away with the wings of the dawn, land beyond the sea, even there your hand would lead me. Your right hand would hold me fast. The omnipresence of God should serve to remind us we cannot hide from him when we have sinned. Psalm 139:11-12. If I say, let darkness surround me, let the light around me be night. If I try to hide from him in my sin, even darkness like this is not too dark for you. Rather, night is as clear as day. Darkness and light are the same. The famous 17th century French mathematician and philosopher Pascal, who's given us most of our modern math today, this is what he said. His center is everywhere, referring to God. His circumference is nowhere. In other words, he's in the middle of everything, but he has no boundaries. But the beautiful thing is we can turn back to him. Look at what Isaiah said in the 30th chapter, the 18th verse. Yet Adonai is just waiting. Idiot. He's just waiting. What are you waiting for? Stubborn, prideful man. The Adonai is just waiting to show you favor. This is his MO. This is his modus operandi. This is how he operates. He's waiting. He wants to. He loves to forgive because he wants you back with him. What are you waiting for? An invitation? You just got one. He will have pity on you from on high, for Adonai is a God of justice. He's fair. Happy are all who wait for him, which is a Hebrew word that means long for him. Happy everybody who longs for him, who wants him. In other words, God waits until the disaster of our choice has taught us the foolishness of that choice. God longs to be gracious. God is omnipresent. Last but not least, God is omnipotent. Another famous theological word. Let's look at what that means in the Latin from 1275, the origin. Omni, all potent. Power, meaning all powerful. If God is infinite and if he is sovereign, then he must have power over all things at all times and in all ways. Look at what Job found out at the end of his meeting with God. I know that you can do everything. Remember what he said? He said, I've heard about you with my ear. You know how many people hear about God? You know how many people speak the scripture? They want to believe. They say they believe, but they sure don't act like they believe. I know that you can do everything, Job said. I've heard about you with my ears. Now I see you with the eyes of my heart. He was so proud of himself. I'm such a good believer. You know how many guys I know, they think they're good believers? Because what's your comparison? Jack the Ripper? Charles Manson? How about comparing yourself to Jesus the Messiah? I know that you can do everything, that no purpose of yours can be thwarted. God, you do what you want, when you want, how you want, to whom you want, whenever you want. That's why I love to worship you. Because it comes from the word worthship, and depending on how much worth your God has, that will be to the extent of your worship. So I don't make people big. You're not that impressive, and either am I. But I make my God big. I don't make my kids big. Oh, every little thing they do, that's lunacy. It's a cupcake society. Putting a cap and gown on a 5-year-old, they just stopped crapping in their pants a year ago. Did you do pomp and circumstance or poop and circumstance? What's going on? Oh, you're great. Oh, you're great. Oh, No, you're average. Teach them character. Let them help somebody who's being bullied, and then tell them they're great. Golly jeepers, what are we going to do? Look at what Jeremiah said in 32:27. It's a rhetorical question. He actually answered it 10 verses before. He says, look, I am Adonai, the God of every living creature. Is there anything too hard for me? What's going on here? They're being exiled. They're being tortured. All their stuff is being burned, and God has the nerve to tell Jeremiah, buy some property. With a little bit of money you have left, you're coming back. See? Context. If you don't read in context, it means nothing. Context. He answers it. Jeremiah 32:17. Look. Adonai, God, you made heaven and earth by your great power and outstretched arm. Nothing's too hard for you. Nowhere is God's omnipotence seen more clearly than the creation story. Look at Genesis 1, just a few verses, 3, 6 through 7 and 9. Then God said, let there be light. And there was light. God said, let there be a dome in the middle of the water. Let it divide the water from the water, sky. God made the dome and divided the water under the dome from the water above the dome. That is how it was. That's how it was. He said it. That's how it was. It's the only book in the world with the creation story. If you're just a New Testament believer, you're a mess. You have no way to prove a pre-existent God. Let the water under the sky be gathered together in one place, and let dry land appear. And that's how it was. You can't deny it. You weren't there, were you? Either were the scientists. Unbelievable. Man needs tools to recreate. God, not so much. Look at Psalm 33:6. By the word of Adonai the heavens were made, and their whole host by the breath from his mouth. What? Milky Way. Andromeda. Everest. God, show me the shed you built. Impress the rabbi. God is seen as the preserver of mankind. Look at Job 38, 8 through 11. Who shut up the sea behind closed doors when it gushed forth from the womb? I lived 10 years on the beach. Every morning I went to the beach without fail. Whether it was raining, if there was a hurricane, I went. And every single solitary morning, I watched those waves bow before my Father. Who shut up the sea behind closed doors when it gushed forth from the womb? When I made the clouds its blanket and dense fog its swaddling cloth. When I made the breakers its boundary, set its gates and bars, and said, you may come this far, but no further. You realize if the moon moved this much closer, we'd be engulfed with water? This much. What moron believes in the Big Bang Theory? If they're truly intelligent and they studied, they would see there has to be an intelligent designer. golly jeepers. But some people, they just remain in the dark because it is their choice. Look at this. This is crazy. He restricts the sea to its assigned shores, and he clothes the water like a little baby. His omnipotence extends to governments and leaders. People are so upset. Who's going to be the next leader? What if the next leader is the same leader I always had, the Lord your God. He's the leader. Look at Daniel 2:21. He brings the changes of seasons and times. He installs and deposes kings. Man proposes, God disposes. Man's plans, garbage cans. Why do you think of yourself as so special? Famous people drop dead, and the next day people forget them. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to those with discernment. He restrains Satan by his unlimited power. Look at Job 1:12-6. Adonai said to the adversary, here, everything he has is in your hands, except don't lay a finger on his person. What does that tell you? I guess Satan's not all powerful. He had to come into his office and knock on the door and cower to get entry. Now, I'll get to Satan next week, and don't you stick him with a stick like a lion, because some of you do that, and you've screwed up your families. You went over and above what you were entitled to do. Ask Michael the archangel, I'll teach you. I'm not looking for you to make Satan big. I'm looking for you to make your God big. Do you understand? He said, don't lay a finger, and the adversary said, I got no choice, right? Adonai said to the adversary again, here, he is in your hands, except you ought to spare his life. If he was all powerful, don't you think he would have taken Job out? Don't you think he'd take you out? He uses certain evil events to allow his purposes to unfold. Yes. Everything is made for God's purposes, even evil for the day of destruction, so says Proverbs 16, verse 4. Satan works for him, buddy. The angel of death works for him, buddy. Everything works for him, buddy. And we're here to bring him glory. We should be working for him, not the other way around. So he uses evil events, such as when the greatest evil event took place at Golgotha. Look at John 19:9-11. And by the way, please do research on Pontius Pilate. If you just look at the scriptures, he looks benign. He was so evil, they had to remove him from Judea. He killed his wife, he killed his kids. He was a murderous, evil, diabolical, made Hitler look like a nice guy. You've got to read, just like when you read in your Bible, and Jesus was crucified. That's what you read, and Jesus was crucified. Study the crucifixion. Study it from a medical perspective. They're out there. Doctors and surgeons, Emory did, and then you'll know what a crucifixion is. You've got to read some external sources. So he goes back into the headquarters, the judgment hall, and asks Yeshua, Pontius Pilate asked, where are you from? But Yeshua didn't answer. So Pilate said to him, you refuse to speak to me? I'm a God, you know? Don't you understand that it's in my power either to set you free or to have you executed? The Jews couldn't do it. Only Rome could execute. So if you think the Jews killed Jesus, you're an idiot. Okay? What does it say in Acts 4:27? Read your Bible. The Gentiles, Herod, Pontius Pilate, and some of the Jews on this day executed Yeshua. There was hundreds of thousands of Jews who loved Yeshua, and one of them brought you the gospel. Don't say idiot statements that are not true. Even if your mother told you, look, if my grandfather was no gosh darn good, although he was my grandfather, he was no gosh darn good. You understand? I don't play favorites. If he had a bad reputation, I moved into a neighborhood, I would apologize to everybody for what he did. And I wouldn't blame them for hating me. But I wouldn't just go, well, he's my grandfather, so I got to stick up for him. Why don't you stick up for the truth? The truth. It's in my power to free you, have you executed. Yeshua answered, you would have no power over me if it hadn't been given to you from above. This is why the one who handed me over to you is guilty of a greater sin, meaning Judas. Now let me give you some perspective. I know you've heard this before, but you've heard it before from me, but I haven't done this in years and years and years. The naked eye, if you go out at night and you look up at the sky and it's well lit, you can see 5,000 stars. That's what you can see. You might not realize that, but that's what the human eye can see. With a very small telescope, a cheap telescope, you can see 2 million stars. Using the 200-inch Hale telescope at the Palomar Observatory, that's in San Diego County, California, about 60 miles southeast of LA. It's run by the California Institute of Technology, and it's a telescope that goes back to 1948, so it's nothing like the Hubble, which was put into a low-orbit space in 1990. No big deal. But you can see billions of galaxies with that telescope. Let's take a look at that telescope. Do we have it? See how big it is? See the lens with the people? Oh, where has my... I'm watching the video. See? Woo, that's big. And that's not even... The Hubble telescope, the government was kind enough to spend your money and my money on it, $2.1 billion, to find out there still is no life on Mars. You get these scientists, brilliant men, brilliant men, Mensa, just brilliant, right? And they're still looking for life on other planets. I mean, still believe in aliens, but they don't believe in God. I'll get to that in a minute. Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. Our galaxy, the Milky Way galaxy, has 200 million stars. One galaxy, of which one is the sun, obviously a planetary system. That solar system, there's millions of solar systems. Although the sun is 335,000 times more massive than the Earth, it is still considered a dwarf star. Sun's tiny. Tiny. Within our galaxy, one galaxy. There's billions of galaxies, 250 billion, give or take. We don't know because we can't see them all. In order to give some perspective, you can fit 1.3 million Earths inside the sun. However, 262 trillion Earths can fit inside the star. Let me show you the star. It's a red supergiant in the constellation Orion. How do you pronounce that? How? You don't know what the heck you're talking about. No, I don't want you to guess. Does anybody know how to pronounce it? No. This isn't the largest star in our galaxy. This is just one galaxy, by the way. There's billions of galaxies. It's Betelgeuse. See, even the stars are Jewish. That's how to pronounce it, really. Betelgeuse. Okay? So 1.3 million Earths fit inside the sun, but 262 trillion Earths can fit inside of this star, this supergiant. You know Orion, the constellation Orion. Job speaks about it. Orion and Pleiades? No? Read the Bible. To help understand the comparison of millions to trillions, because we throw those terms around, right? Okay? I'm going to use a basic unit of time called the second, which you know. 1 million seconds is equivalent to 12 days. 1 trillion seconds are equivalent to 32,000 years. So we throw these numbers around, but we have no perspective, and that's a problem, because we don't understand how big God is. When referring to planetary distances in space, we have to speak in light years. We can't speak in years. We have to speak in light years, 186,000 miles per second, or 670 million miles per hour. Huh? That could be Fast and Furious God, right? How would you like to have a car that goes 670 million miles per hour? Light travels 6 trillion miles in a year. The next closest galaxy to ours is called Andromeda. The next closest, that's the second galaxy from our Milky Way, okay? The next closest. It's 10 million, hang in there, you just might start to worship God. 10 million miles away from our planet Earth. It would take 2 million years traveling at 670 million miles per hour to arrive at Andromeda. The crazy thing is that the Milky Way and the Andromeda galaxies form what is called the local group of galaxies. It's neighborhood galaxies. There's billions of galaxies with billions of stars further away, and we can't see them. I'm here to tell you that God is beyond that. The galaxies are not infinite. You might have been taught that. You've been taught wrong. The galaxies are finite. God had to press them down from his infiniteness. He's beyond it all. That's what makes him God. And you can't wrap your mind around it no matter how bright you are, because you're not supposed to. Because you are finite, my friend, and your thinking is finite at best. And God is infinite. And all you could do is drop to your knees just like Einstein did and said, "Oh my God, my Lord, forgive me." Okay, that's a lot of information. And I'm sure some of you are you don't even know what the heck I was just talking about, right? Because it's astronomical. That's where we get that term from. So the way I'm going to close today, hang in there. I know for some of you that go to other churches, you'd already be eaten about an hour and a half ago. Okay, God gave you 20 minutes. I'm cool. Thanks, pal. And if anything happens to my kids and my business, I'll cry out to you, and hopefully you'll hear me. I'm going to read to you a children's book. Okay? Would that be nice? Because some of you are sleepy anyway. Let me show you the cover of the book. It's called "Is a Blue Whale the Biggest Thing There Is?" by Robert E. Wells. I tried to find out if he's a believer. There's nowhere in the book that says he's a believer, and I would believe that if he was, it would pop up somewhere, especially at the end. So just sit back and relax and let me read you a bedtime story. Okay? Let's go to the first page. This is all perspective. You see the animals on the dock? Okay. This is size perspective, okay? This is the tail of a blue whale. The flipper parts are called flukes. Look at how everybody is paying attention now. It's amazing. I said really good stuff for like an hour, and now all of a sudden everybody's like, "Oh, a 5-year-old book." Can we play a video game after this, Rabbi? This is the tail of a blue whale. The flipper parts are called flukes. Just the flukes, all by themselves, are bigger than most of Earth's creatures. Here's the whole blue whale. It's not just bigger than most of Earth's creatures, it's bigger than all of them. A blue whale can grow to be 100 feet long and weighs 150 tons. Multiply that by 2,000 pounds and you got something. It's the biggest animal that ever lived. But of course, a blue whale is not the biggest thing there is. If you put 100 blue whales in a really big jar, you see how little the animals are now? See the animals? Do you see them? Do you see them? There they are. If you put 100 blue whales in a really big jar, okay, and then put 2 of those whale jars on an enormously large platform, and then made a tremendous tall tower out of 10 platforms of whale jars, that tower of whale jars would look quite small, balanced on top of Mount Everest. You were right. Yes, Mount Everest is mighty big. If it were hollow, it could hold millions of whale jars. But it's not even close to being the biggest thing there is. Even 100 Mount Everest stacked one on top of the other would be a mere whisker on the face of the earth. See them? And just in case you thought our earth was the biggest thing there is, here are 100 full-size Earths in a rather big bag. Next to our sun, see the 100 Earths? This was an addition. We put some of these things in, obviously. I desperately tried to call the author. He wouldn't take my call, so now tough. There's no doubt about it. Our sun is huge. Yeah, every song we sing here, we pay money to sing it. Most places won't do that, but we try to be law-abiding. There's no doubt about it, our sun is huge. More than 1 million of our Earths would fit inside. It's so big that it can control the orbits of 9 planets and give us a sunburn from 93 million miles away. But even our sun is far from being the biggest thing there is. Because if our sun were turned into a sun-sized orange and packed in an immense orange crate along with 99 other sun-sized oranges, so now we have 100 suns, our suns, in that crate. It could be set on top of something much bigger, a red supergiant star called Antares. Antares, you're looking at the face of Antares. One of the stars in our galaxy. One galaxy. Just one of the billions. Stars come in many different sizes. Our sun and Antares are both stars, but our sun is medium-sized, and Antares as well, it's a supergiant. It's one of the top 10. Antares was not always this big. All stars have lifetimes, and some, like Antares, expand to enormous sizes and turn red as they get close to the end of their lives. Antares has grown so big that more than 50 million of our suns would fit inside. How could anything be that big? How could anything be bigger? Our galaxy, the Milky Way, is much bigger. A galaxy is a gathering of a great number of stars. The Milky Way is made up of billions of stars, including Antares, just one. Along with those stars, there are countless comets and asteroids, lots of meteors, and at least 9 planets. Just as a sandcastle has a shape formed by all the grains of sand that is made of, our galaxy has a shape formed by all its stars. We cannot see the shape from Earth, but if we are outside our galaxy looking at it from a great distance, it might look something like this, with a bulging galactic center and great cloud-like swirls glowing with the light of billions of stars. One galaxy. From this distance, you could not see the galaxy's stars separately. The Milky Way must be the biggest thing there is. But wait, our galaxy is not alone. Astronomers, the scientists who study stars, report that there are billions of other galaxies out in the darkness we call space, and all of them are part of something even bigger. The universe. The universe is all the galaxies and all the dark space between them. It is everything that exists anywhere in space and time. Because it is so amazingly big, no one knows what the whole universe really looks like. But here's what a tiny part of it might look like, showing some of the many different galaxies. The universe is the biggest thing we know. More than likely, we can call it the biggest thing there is. Even with our most powerful telescopes, we cannot see to the end of the universe. So we don't really know how big it is. But this much we do know. It's a lot bigger than a blue whale. Well, Robert Wells understands that the universe is bigger than the blue whale. I, your rabbi, understand something a little different. So I'll take it to the beginning. Genesis 1:1. It says, in the beginning, God created the universe. This is why I tell you this is not for the non-believer. This is to get you, not them. Don't you understand? You've got to worship God. You've got to give God your whole heart. You've got to start giving God more. Don't you understand? Because if they don't see it in you, then God must not be worthy enough. Same thing with your kids, knucklehead. It's not sending them to a youth group. It's sending them down another water slide with a T-shirt that says XYZ Church. If they don't see you giving him the worship he deserves. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? If you could believe those first 4 words, you could believe anything in the rest of it. But if you can't, you shouldn't believe none of it. The divine record assumes the existence of God rather than seeking to prove it. I call him the causeless cause. I think it was very nice of God to put a scripture in. He was kind enough to give a special name to those who claim there is no God. In fact, I believe they just celebrated one of their Levitical holidays, no? A couple of weeks ago? A fool is a person who lacks judgment or sense. I remember a story about two young men at the Louvre Museum, maybe the greatest art museum in the world in Paris. And it houses a lot of paintings like the Mona Lisa, and they were looking at the Mona Lisa. It only took Leonardo da Vinci 16 years to do it. And this moron, I'm sorry, he wasn't a moron. I shouldn't say that. That's not nice. This idiot looked at it and said, I don't really think much of it. And at that point, the curator of the museum happened to be walking by, and he heard. And he goes, I'm sorry. Just like I would do if somebody said that about God. I'm sorry. I wouldn't keep walking. No way. It says, set apart Messiah as Lord, always being prepared to give a defense for the hope that's in you. And so he said, this painting is probably undeniably and unequivocally a bona fide masterpiece by every art connoisseur in the world. You don't think much of it? Sir, this painting is not on trial. Your judgment is on trial. God's not on trial, buddy. You are. God's not done anything wrong. We have, yes? Yes. And the crazy thing is we still do, even though we know better. Yes. I'm going to end with some verses from Isaiah 40, and then next week we'll get into the enemy a little bit. We'll talk about Satan. We'll have a little bit more time, and then we'll talk about us in the midst of this warfare. What can Satan do? What he can't do? What we need to do to protect ourselves. I'm going to teach you how to fight. Because it is a fight, and some of us are getting the snot beat out of us for no apparent reason. Who has measured the spirit of Adonai? Who has been his counselor instructing him? Whom did he consult to gain understanding? Who taught him how to judge? Who taught him what he needed to know or showed him how to discern? The nations are like a drop in the bucket. They count like a grain of dust on the scales. The islands weigh as little as specks of dust. With whom then will you compare God? By what standard will you evaluate him? Don't you know? Don't you hear? Haven't you been told from the start? Don't you understand how the earth is set up? With whom then will you compare me? With whom am I equal? Asked the Holy One. Our God is infinite. Our God is bottomless. And our God is altogether baffling. He is immeasurable, incomprehensible, and inexplicable. He is totally breathtaking and absolutely, positively awesome. Let's stand together. Gives a whole nother meaning to that song, How Great Is Our God, huh? Not just a cute little anthem. Well, I hope God's just a little bit bigger. But remember, you have to decrease so he can increase. You got to decrease. It's not about you. It's definitely not about me. It's all about him. Always was, always will be. And when the kingdom comes, all we're going to do is worship him, so you better start now. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. And may the Lord lift up his very countenance upon you and give you his peace. In the name of the Prince of all Peace, Yeshua. Yevarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha. Yo'er Adonai ponav elecha v'hunecha. Yisa Adonai ponav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. Love you guys. Shabbat shalom.